Le damos la bienvenida con un fuerte aplauso al doctor Elliott Grantt. Welcome, Elliott. Very welcome.
Good morning. My name is Elliott Grantt. I'm the general manager of a company called Mineral at X. And our mission is to transform the future of agriculture to make it more sustainable through the application of advanced technologies like machine learning. Now, I first came to Korea Technical Congress in 2017, and I was inspired by the people I met, the farmers, the advisors, the leadership of Korea. And over the last few years, we've been working together towards this vision of a more sustainable agriculture. And it's a real privilege 5 years later to come back to Korea Congress and share with you our learnings, share with you what we've learned over the last 5 years and what we see in the future. Now, first off, what is X? X is the so-called Moonshot Factory. It's a division of Alphabet. And Alphabet, you may know, is the parent company of Google. So I have the honor of working at one of the world's most advanced technology companies. And my job is to take the learnings from that company and apply them to agriculture. And sometimes being at X is like living in the future. When I sit in my office at X, there are self-driving cars going around the building. When living in San Francisco, we see self-driving cars all the time. Inside the building at X, there are robots cleaning the kitchens and sorting the trash. And so we have this opportunity to live in the future. And my job today is to paint a picture for you of the future of agriculture, one possible future. So what's the mission of X? X was established 12 years ago by the founders of Google because they saw the opportunity to apply breakthrough technologies to some of the world's hardest problems. And our philosophy at X is how can we think radically differently about these hard problems? We often talk about 10x thinking. And that means if we want to radically change an industry, it radically improve the lives of billions of people, we can't do the same thing that everyone else has been doing. If we apply the same tools and the same technology and the same thinking, the best we could do is a 10% improvement, just incremental. If we want to radically change an industry, we need to think 10x differently. And let me give you some examples. On the screen here, you see some of the businesses that have graduated from X and become Alphabet companies. On the bottom left, Wing is a radically different way of thinking about logistics. What if we could replace the last mile of delivery with an autonomous drone? What would that do to the carbon footprint of the supply chain? Or Waymo. 10 years ago, the idea of a car that could drive itself was a radical idea that would transform transportation. And now if you come to San Francisco, you will see self-driving cars picking people up and taking them to work. And Verily is Alphabet's bet in healthcare, radically thinking differently about the application of healthcare data to make the lives of millions of people better. So these are examples of projects that began at X as a crazy idea and are now companies of Alphabet. And my job is to do this for agriculture. And the project that I lead is called Mineral. I think it's worth asking, though, why does Google care about agriculture? For those farmers in the room, and there are hopefully lots of farmers in the room, the work you do is essential. Feeding the planet is one of the most important jobs that anyone can do. And we also know that you're under extreme pressure every year to do more with less, to increase productivity, reduce the inputs you use, increase sustainability. In fact, over the next 30 years, global farmers have to produce 70% more food on the same amount of land or less, using fewer inputs, at the same time under the pressures of climate change, unpredictable weather, droughts, floods, things that we've never seen before. So for the next 30 years, which I hope for me is at least the rest of my career, we cannot stand still. We have to think differently and embrace new ideas every year. And that's the mission that drives us at X. How can we apply the technology and capabilities of Alphabet to help you solve these problems? How do we adapt the breakthroughs that we're seeing in other industries and bring them to agriculture? The other important point is this will not be solved by one company alone. Agriculture will not be solved by one technology alone. It will require an ecosystem like Krea's organization and others, startups, existing companies, farmers, coming together and embracing new ways of thinking. There is no single silver bullet to the problem of agriculture. I'm also inspired by being in Argentina, being in Latin America, which I think can be a learning laboratory for the future of agriculture. It's such an important part of your economy. There's so much talent in agriculture here. I'm actually very excited that the new breakthroughs in ag are more likely to come from Argentina and Latin America than Silicon Valley or Europe. Don't tell people I said that in Silicon Valley. So that's our mission: help the world's farmers transform agriculture to become more sustainable. And I'm also confident that we can do this, because the history of agriculture has been characterized by these kinds of breakthroughs throughout the last 150 years. Deere transformed agriculture through mechanization, big step change in productivity. Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch in the 1910s transformed agriculture again by fixing nitrogen from air, almost magically creating artificial fertilizer, another step change in productivity. And in the 1980s, Monsanto embraced biotechnology to transform plant DNA, another step change in productivity. And today, in 2022, I think we are at the next era, the next dawn of a transformation in agriculture, and that is computational power. And I want to explain in the next 20 minutes to you and show you examples of why I think we are now at that new era of computational agriculture in a way that we weren't just 5 years ago. So I'm optimistic that the computational power and artificial intelligence will help us together make agriculture more sustainable. I said at the beginning that X likes to think differently about problems. So how can we think differently about farming, an industry that has been around for at least 10,000 years? If you look at the bottom of this stack, the primary purpose of agriculture for 10,000 years was to produce food, as much food as possible on land. And that has been very, very successful. But now we see, society sees the costs of climate change. And it actually creates an opportunity for farmland that's new. To intensify farming, to reduce pressure on forests and reduce deforestation. Potentially to sequester carbon from the atmosphere and lock it in the ground using plants. To reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce water usage, to increase water quality, to increase precious biodiversity for the planet. These are so-called ecosystem services that farming can provide that will have tremendous value for the planet. Looked at it this way, farmland may be one of the most undervalued assets in the world. That's an exciting idea for people who own and manage farmland. And the key to unlocking this layers of value is one ingredient: data. Historically, farmland was primarily about physical goods, inputs coming in, crops and grains going out. But the future of farmland will also include bits, data coming in and going out. The good news is farmland has a lot of data. Right now, there are satellites flying over us. The satellite Sentinel-2, for example, generates 1.6 terabytes of data every day in imagery that's beamed down. And there's Landsat, and there's MODIS, and there's Planet. There are more and more satellites going up all the time. Every piece of farm equipment now that you operate generates megabytes of data per acre. You have farm management systems generating data, weather stations generating data, governments generating data. Surely we have enough data now to answer these questions. Well, maybe this is not a secret, but the dirty secret of the data industry is this data is a mess. The quality is not good enough to draw the insights that we need. The data is in different formats, it's in different places. We don't have the tools yet to make sense of all these kinds of different data. You can't put an image in an Excel spreadsheet and join it with a vector file from a tractor and add in some text and draw any insights. It's called multimodal data, and we can't solve it yet. Okay, but I think we'll solve that problem eventually. But I would argue today that even all of this data is not enough. It's not sufficient. If we want to truly solve agriculture and truly think differently about sustainability, we need to get much, much closer. We need to get to the point where every single plant in the field is optimally managed. We need to get to the plant level. Now that is 10x thinking. In fact, whenever you or your advisor go into the field, they are using the powers of human perception to observe plants. You can see plant maturity, stage of growth, color, disease pressure, pest pressure, weed pressure. You are using the powers of human perception and human intuition to make important decisions about what to do in the field. You can't do that with a satellite image. And this is how farming has been done for thousands of years, and this is a problem. Because if we truly want to scale up sustainable farming, we can't scale up human powers of perception. It's just not possible to observe every one of the 10 trillion corn plants that are planted every year. So here's a challenge that I think X is in a good place to take. Because in the last few years, machine learning has made tremendous advances. And so a few years ago, we said to ourselves, what if you could build a machine that could perceive every single plant in a field as well as a human expert can? And so we set out to build devices like these in the video here that are able to go through a field and image every single plant and do it from the moment the plant emerges from the soil through every stage of growth to maturity. These machines are now deployed all over the world, including in Argentina, and they are imaging many of the different most important crop types in the world. And our goal is to create the world's largest plant image database. We currently have billions of images in this database, and we're just getting started. Because using these images, we're able to teach machines to understand what's happening at the plant level. What you see in this image, if you can make it out, is we took millions of images of soybeans and we used it to train an algorithm to extract information from the picture. For example, we can count individual soybean pods. We can measure the size and the color. We can even count how many beans are inside each pod, because the algorithm has learned how to interpret the bumps. Not just pod count and pod size, but we can measure about a dozen different traits now with our machine. emergence, stand count, lodging, leaf color, leaf area, things that a human would previously be able to do, we can now do with a machine. And it's not just the things that humans can do, it's also the things that humans cannot do. We talk about giving experts superhuman powers. In this example, our machines are counting not just the heads of wheat on a wheat plant, but every single grain on every single head. Something that no human breeder or researcher or farmer would ever try to do. This is the opportunity that we see with artificial intelligence, is to do things that were previously impossible. And if you're a breeder, we're now getting new insight into how a plant's genetics are responding to its environment or to its management practices. And we're working with some of the most progressive crop breeders in the world and crop researchers to see whether this technology can unlock a new era in crop breeding. So that's breeding. But what about farming? These machines are too slow and too expensive to be applied at scale in agriculture. The good news is technology is always getting better. This machine in the video sends the images to the cloud where they're processed on giant computers and then sent back. It takes about 24 hours to go around that loop. The good news is Google is inventing new kinds of technology like this chip in my hand, which takes the power of those servers and makes them something that can fit in your pocket. The chip in my hand is a device designed specifically to run machine learning models on the edge with very low power. On the edge means they're not connected to the internet. In the video, what you see here is a prototype we've built using several of these attached to that ATV. It's driving through the field at about 20 kilometers an hour, and it's imaging every single plant as it goes. And it's doing it in real time on the edge. And what you can see in the video is we're extracting information like where are the weeds, where's the crop, how many weeds are there, even what species of weeds are we seeing. And this is just a prototype and we're just getting started. And there's a long way to go because this is an extremely difficult machine learning problem to operate at that speed in a harsh environment like the field in unknown lighting conditions. But I see enough progress to be confident that this is going to work. And when we solve this problem together, we think it will unlock a new way of farming. Imagine being able to look at every single plant in the field whenever a piece of equipment goes through the field and extract high-resolution, accurate information about plant disease, plant health, weed pressure, pest pressure, soil compaction. It could improve machine efficiency. So many new things will become possible when we have this plant-level perception. So the question I think I would pose to you is, when this arrives, what will you do differently? How will smart equipment unlock a new way of doing sustainable farming? And we're not stopping at farm equipment. There are 500 million farmers in the world, many of whom have very small farms. So we're continuing to push the abilities. Can we make this device that most of you have in your pocket into a farming tool? Where, as you see in the example on the screen, we can take our models and make them small enough to run on a regular phone. And in this case, we're doing a 8-species weed classifier in real time. Basically, just scan the field, and the device will, in real time, tell you what's happening. Our vision is to put that capability in everybody's hands and combine the power of perception with the power of machine learning to draw new insights and make expertise go to the edge. So at the beginning of my presentation, I said, we're on a journey to agriculture in the ML era. Where are we in that journey? On the bottom of this screen, you see the challenge of organizing the world's agricultural data. all 4 billion acres of it. And we're, at Mineral, well on our way to doing that, ingesting the data, cleaning it up, and drawing new insights from it. We're also working on the top part. Can we also add in perception, what's happening at the field, at the individual plant level, to give farmers and advisors and researchers new insights into what's happening at a level of resolution never seen before. But here's probably the most important point. The mistake I think we all made for the last decade was we thought that more data is better. Because the goal is not to collect more data. The goal is to start to understand the data. And this is where, again, I'm excited about the recent breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. It's this extraordinary power of AI to generate new knowledge, to draw meaning from data. And I think it's worth giving you an example to explain why I think this is a profoundly new era. About 4 years ago, DeepMind, which is an Alphabet company, created a software program that could teach itself how to play chess. Up to this point, all chess programs were taught with human strategies, and they learned from humans. DeepMind taught itself how to play chess, and in 4 hours, it became the world's greatest chess player. What was more remarkable was when human chess experts watched AlphaZero play chess, they realized it was playing in ways that they had never thought about. It was generating new chess strategies. This was a great example of perhaps the first time where software created knowledge for humans. Up till this point, only humans could create new knowledge. But now we saw that algorithms could create new knowledge. And just this year, we're seeing programs like Lambda, the large language model from Alphabet, be able to reason. Lambda can explain jokes. Lambda can understand what we mean. And then some of you may be familiar with a program called DALL-E, which is able to take text prompts and image prompts and generate new images from nothing. And the reason I bring up these examples is I think this is going to be powerful for agriculture. If you go to a Google search today and you type in, what will the yield of my field 27 be if I make this change in nitrogen? Google cannot give you that answer because that's a search problem. Excuse me, that's not a search problem. That's an understanding problem. We need to get away from an era of search towards an era of knowledge generation. And that will require enormous amounts of data and new machine learning models like we're working on now to go from this era of searching for information to generating new insight. And I think we're on the right path. So let me wrap up with a few, maybe some requests of you. If we are together going to get to this future where computers will start to help us make better decisions and transition to sustainability, we play together a key role in collecting the data to train those machines. So there are 3 things that we've learned together with working with CREA over the last 4 years. First is standardization. The more we can collect data in a standardized format, like the DAT format that CREA is working on, the easier it becomes for computers to understand us. Number 2 is accuracy. The worst thing that you can put into a machine learning model training data is bad data, because the machine will learn the wrong thing. Imagine teaching that chess computer with a few games where somebody cheated. The machine won't understand the difference between good and bad. So even small amounts of bad data can mess up a machine learning model. Now we understand that when you're in harvest, the last thing you want to be doing is dialing in the yield monitor. But having accurate data is really the key to going from where we are today to a future in which we have AI models that can help us. Things like typos, missing data. These are problems that we need to solve together to have better training. And then the third lesson is completeness. The AI models are amazingly good at taking in huge data sets and drawing meaning from them, but they get confused if the data is incomplete. What I mean by that is all the data you can collect about a field is helpful to the machine. And having that same data consistently collected every year makes the models better. So we have a job together collectively to help collect the data that can train these models that will help us all transition to sustainability. So let me leave you with a couple of thoughts on what we've learned together and what I hope is a little bit inspirational, a little bit controversial, perhaps. First, I genuinely believe that we are at the dawn of an era of machine learning that will transform the future of sustainable farming. And from a business point of view, will be the difference between farm operations that are profitable and farm operations that are not sustainable. So the embrace of this technology will be the source of differentiation. Number two, the best time to start collecting data is 10 years ago. Because there's one thing true about agriculture, you cannot go back in time and collect that data. So the second best time to start collecting data is right now. And then the third lesson is what I mentioned is there's no single company that will solve this problem. This is a collective challenge. So the challenge to all of you looking at this technology coming is how will you run your businesses differently? How will you think differently about agriculture if you know this technology is coming? Because as I mentioned, this is a joint effort. This will take all of us, collectively, experts in the field, in agronomy, in farming, in technology, and organizations like CREA to bring us together to think differently every year about how we're going to farm. Now, innovation is messy. Innovation is unpredictable, it's non-linear. And so I am so grateful to this leadership and the vision of the CREA leadership who we've been working with, who've been so patient with us as we've gone through this winding journey together. That's a photo of us 5 years ago. I look a lot younger in this picture. But I'm so immensely grateful to the leadership of CREA to partner with X. And I really hope that we will continue this fruitful partnership in the future, exchanging ideas and pushing the thinking of agriculture. And now I want to leave you with one short video of some work that we're doing in South America, in Colombia, applying this technology not to soy and corn farming, but to the problem of feeding billions of people in sub-Saharan Africa with crops that are very poorly understood. So if you could run the video, please.
Agriculture is a big contributor to climate change. It's also a major victim of climate change. Farmers in the global south, for example, are seeing more extreme weather conditions, droughts, floods, unpredictable weather events that are making it really hard for them to grow. Minerals philosophy is how do we partner with other experts in the agricultural system to together solve some of these intractable problems. The Mineral Rover is the combination of a number of cutting-edge technologies. We've taken the best of robotics and optics and machine learning and high-performance computing and put them all together in this first-of-its-kind machine that can go through a field and image every single plant with unprecedented detail. The opportunity that we have in front of us is to combine the capabilities of the Mineral Rover with the expertise of plant breeders to accelerate the discovery of crops that will transform the lives of millions of farmers and the people who rely on them around the world. Minerals developing new technologies to help build a more sustainable, a more resilient, and a more productive food system. And ultimately, meet the world's growing demand for food.
Thank you very much indeed.